Good afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us. It has been a rocky year for the real estate market, but a new report from Royal LePage forecasts some modest growth in home prices across most areas in the country, except for Metro Vancouver. We'll also take a look at what's in store for buyers, sellers, and renters in the new year. And the hits keep coming for BC's forestry sector, thanks to both economic and environmental threats. So, what changes are needed to make the forestry industry sustainable? I'm Amy Bell, in for Michelle Elliott, and this is BC Today. And thank you for joining us, whether it's on radio, TV, or live stream. You can call us now on our top story. Do you plan on buying a home in 2026? Are you finally seeing some rental relief? Our number is 604-669-3733. You can also call 1-800-825-5950, or you can hit pound 690, or just email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. Now, before we begin, we are keeping an eye on an orange alert issued by Environment Canada for parts of the Fraser Valley. The heavy rain will impact central Fraser Valley, including Chilliwack, and east, including Hope Slide, and the western sections of Highway 3 from Hope to Princeton. An atmospheric river will arrive on the south coast, bringing heavy rain tonight through to Wednesday. Warm air with the system will cause freezing levels to rise, and snowmelt combined with the already saturated ground and heavy rain will likely result in high stream flows and localized flooding. Roads may become impassable and visibility reduced. Environment Canada advises not to drive through flooded roadways and to stay away from rivers, creeks, and culverts. An orange alert means severe weather is likely to cause significant damage, disruption, or health impacts. And buyers and renters in Metro Vancouver real estate markets are expected to continue to see some prices ease as we head into the new year. Royal LePage's 2026 market survey forecast shows home prices for the Metro Vancouver area are expected to lower by 3.5% over the next year. And December's Rentals.ca report shows Vancouver rents are down 6.6% this December. So, what does that mean for you? Do you plan on buying in 2026? If you're a renter, are you seeing more properties become affordable? What market changes are you seeing and expecting in the new year? Call us now. Just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also call us at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Once again, 604-669-3733. And you can always email us, bctoday@cbc.ca, or leave a comment on our TikTok Live. Now, joining us are two guests for this half hour. Randy Ryalls is the managing broker of Royal LePage Sterling Realty in Port Moody. Good afternoon to you, Randy.
Thank you. How are you, Amy?
I'm doing well. Nice to see you again. And Nina Knudsen
Great.
is a property manager with Royal LePage Sussex in North Vancouver. Good afternoon to you, Nina.
Good afternoon, Amy. Thanks for having me.
So always, real estate market is a hot topic here in Metro Vancouver. Randy, I'll start with you. What do you make of the Royal LePage forecast that shows house prices in Vancouver are expected to fall over the next year?
Yeah, I think I think it's just more of the same. The market that we had all through 2025 just never really kind of hit its stride. And so I think we're going to just see kind of a continuation of that as we get into 2026 and the new year. So it's been a fairly soft market. Sales are down, transactional volume is down, and so there's a little bit more inventory for buyers to choose from, and so not quite as competitive as it has been in the past. So I think we're
And
going to just see more of.
more of the same. And, when we look at the report further, it does show that the market is expected to rebound slightly in most areas across the country. Why are we seeing that exception here in Vancouver and also in Toronto?
I think it's just a matter of the price points here are just so much higher than they are in other parts of the country. And so I think we just have a little bit more of a correction to go before buyers, are feeling like it's affordable. And so I think it's just going to take a little bit longer here.
Okay. And Nina, December's Rentals.ca showed Vancouver rental prices down 6.6%, with the average apartment renting for just under $2,700. How has that been changing in recent months?
Well, it actually goes back to changes in the last 8 months. There's been a significant down slope for the prices since the beginning of the year, and there's no reprieve at all for landlords in the new year. It's a lot more than in the Lower Mainland than what the average percentage decline is.
Mm-hmm.
What was renting for $4,000 over a year ago is now renting at about $3,200 for a two-bedroom, two-bath condo anywhere in the Lower Mainland. And if you're looking at older buildings that don't have, the amenities like air conditioning or EV charging, two bedrooms are falling below the $3,000 threshold now. So.
Obviously, not ideal news for landlords, but for renters, we've long faced an affordability crisis here in Metro Vancouver. So are we seeing that pendulum swinging where it will be easier for people to get into that rental market and still be able to pay their bills?
Oh, absolutely. And what's happening now is their market, they're out shopping, and a lot of my tenants are, approaching me asking for rebates to bring their rent down to a market level. And I have a very detailed email that I'm sending to my clients, basically showing them and doing the math for them that if their tenants leave, the tens of thousands of dollars that they can lose because the vacancy is now gone from about 2 to 3 weeks to 2 to 3 months before we can get any place re-rented, just because there's just so much inventory out there for the tenants to choose from.
And Randy, when it comes to homes for sale, how much more inventory is on the market right now, say, than just a year ago?
Oh, yeah, throughout the year, we've seen inventory just steadily creeping up. And so, a year ago, we were probably at 13 or 14,000 listings. And now in Greater Vancouver, we're, sort of sitting closer to 15,000. And that's down from about 17.8 at the height of the year this year. So, we have sort of a combination of two things. We have a significant decrease in the amount of transactional volume, and we've got just more properties coming into the market and staying around for longer. So buyers have just much more inventory to choose from now.
We've got some calls coming in. As I mentioned, always a hot topic when we bring up housing on this show, so we'll get to them. Pete in Vancouver, thanks for calling BC Today.
Hi. I think the most important thing we could do to make housing more affordable for locals living in it is to do a Singapore-style stamp tax, whereas if you're a corporation, you pay 60% tax on a home. If you're a foreigner, you pay 60% tax. If you're a Canadian citizen for your first home, no tax. Second home, 20%. Third, 30%. Because look at how much homes were built under the leader of the offshore or luxury empty condos party, Gregor Robertson. Ton of buildings, but a lot of them went to domestic real estate speculators like himself or Pierre Poilievre or Trudeau. So if we just build more for speculators, local and foreign, we'd be screwed. So make it so that we prioritize locals who are living here, because all the other buildings, we're just wasting our own tax dollars to make millionaires like Gregor Robertson and Pierre Poilievre and Mark Carney even richer.
All right, thank you for calling in, Pete. And Randy, I'll leave that one to you to respond to in terms of how much foreign ownership is still impacting the markets here.
Well, surprisingly, it's a remarkably small number of transactions that are done by foreign entities, and so that number is probably less than 1% now in BC. So there has been a little bit of a vilification of the foreign buyer. People think that they're the ones driving up the prices sort of in 2021 and 2022, but that's not really that doesn't really hold statistically. So it is. It's always a topic of, it's a very contentious topic for sure, but it's not sure it holds.
All right. We've got another call that's come in, this one from Duncan in Victoria. Hi, Duncan. Thanks for joining the show.
Hi.
So what are your thoughts on the real estate market as it stands right now?
I'd say it's twofold, First, that the prices coming down, I'll celebrate them coming down, but after years and years of prices going up and up and up, a 6% here or a 3% here isn't really going to make too much of a difference. And then secondly, you've got a lot of mismatched product to demand. How many of these large buildings with tons of units in them are one bedroom or studio apartments when you've got, families or groups of 2 or 3 that need these spaces, and the actual amount of housing for them is just way too limited.
Thank you for bringing that up, Duncan. And that is a point that gets brought up quite often for the rental market. We see this glut of condos that people are unable to sell, so they're looking to the rental market to try and recoup any of their investments. But the product itself is not always suitable for the people that could afford them. Are we still seeing that disconnect?
Yeah, absolutely. And, with so many pre-sales coming on the market last year, and then also having, probably 10 calls a week from realtors, from their clients wanting to remove their condos from the sales market and put them for rent, it's just causing, even more inventory. It's really, it's where do we see prices are definitely before COVID, probably 2018, 2019 prices now. And, for all of the people that purchase pre-sale that are trying to just make ends meet, there's just so much inventory on the market.
And we continue to sort of see that the affordability crisis, it's going to take housing markets to come down quite a bit before we see that sort of matching up. Randy, when we look at, people, it's not what it used to be. You can't just put your house on the market and have multiple offers with no subjects. It's a lot more difficult now. How is that sort of changing the sellers' strategies, but also for the buyers? Are they able to be a bit more selective and picky and sort of shape the real estate market that way in terms of what's desirable?
Well, yeah, things have changed. There's no doubt about that. And so if you're a seller in this market, it's a lot more difficult than it was certainly, in 2021 or 2022, where, you had people lined up down the street to buy it. And so buyers can be much more selective now. You've got much higher inventory levels. Sellers need to be much more aggressive in terms of pricing. They really need to almost be priced to be the next sale, is the best way to put it. Because if you're in the middle of 14,000 listings, it's pretty hard to get noticed. So you do have to be very well priced, and you do, you need to present a very nice product. People are a lot less willing to do a whole bunch of work to something as well. So buyers have kind of taken it on the chin for a long time, and especially in the Lower Mainland, and now the market has swung, and they are in a much better position to be able to negotiate a favorable deal now. So it's good if you're a buyer.
It is good if you're a buyer, but yes, as you mentioned, not good if you're a seller. What are you recommending to people that, for whatever reason, are considering selling a property in the very near future?
Well, it's all about price, Amy. There's nothing wrong with the property. The price doesn't fix immediately. And so, depending on your timeline and your motivation, you have to price it according to, what you're trying to do. And so, if you do need to sell it quickly, you do need to be priced very aggressively and make sure that it presents as well as it can possibly present in the marketplace. So you do want to uh, you do have to be priced pretty sharp right now.
All right. We have another call that's come in from Rob in Kelowna. Hi, Rob.
Hi there.
And what are your thoughts on the real estate market? How are things looking in the Okanagan there?
Well, the Kelowna, prices are pretty high, but I'm an older guy, and I've owned probably 10, 12 homes over my lifetime. I've bought homes that have increased in value over time.
Mm-hmm.
I've bought homes during periods of time when the value has gone down, and I've sold them at a loss. I've experienced 18% interest rates during the 80s, that kind of thing. So, and I also have a degree in economics, so I understand the economics of it. But it never ceases to amaze me how realtors in the real estate industry bemoans the lowering of prices of homes. In my view, that's a good thing. It'll stimulate the economy. It will, and as far as I'm concerned, homes need to come down another 10, 15% in value and price. And a lot of people have made a lot of money on the appreciation of homes over the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of realtors have made a lot of money, with their commissions. And for suddenly the real estate industry to say, oh, the market's not doing very good, I think that's just a complete reversal of what Canadians need. Forget the real estate industry. Canadians need, affordable homes. And if prices are coming down, that's good. And they should be coming down some more, because there's tons of young people out there. Like my kids, for example, who are in their, 40s, they can't afford to go out and buy a home, even though they're well educated and have good jobs. It's just mystifying why the real estate industry, kind of has this doom and gloom view of the housing market when prices go down. So that's my point.
All right. Thank you very much for that. And I think he sort of echoes a sentiment that we do hear from a lot of people, in that the market dramatically does need to change, that we need to sort of level the playing field and make it more accessible for people to own and rent. Nina, in terms of the rental market, what would you expect to be happening in the next year? Are we going to continue to see this gradual sort of reduction and perhaps a bit of a reset?
Yeah, I don't think that the prices are going to come down that much farther than from where they are right now. I mean, everything that is happening and reflective of what's happening to make a sale is exactly the same as in my business to make, to rent a property. If somebody needs to get it rented right away, they have to be priced well below, what the other units in the building especially are being rented for. So it's all relative. So until we really see a shift in the real estate sales of things, we're going to stay very stagnant. And I don't think they're going to fall much lower than they are right now, but I don't see them going up anytime soon either. So.
Right. We have an email that's come in from Felix. It says, it seems to me that the main culprit in the ridiculous rise in the real estate value in recent years is corporate buyers who can always outbid private buyers. They will also often buy in bulk and buy for investments. Ordinary folks simply will never be able to afford either buying or especially renting while this continues. I'll put this to both of you, but I'll ask you first, Randy, how much of an issue is this? Are we really seeing these corporations outbidding private owners?
Well, in BC, it's, I guess I can only really speak for our own brokerage, but we don't really see many of our listings being, purchased, especially en masse by corporate entities. We're not seeing that happening. And so, it is certainly a phenomenon that is going on in different places. I think primarily in the United States, but in my own experience, to a much lesser degree here. British Columbia also has some fairly significant tax, implications for corporate buyers and residential real estate. So it's a different, it's a difficult time to be a corporate buyer in British Columbia for residential real estate.
And quickly, how much of an impact does that have on the rental market?
Not so much with rental because it's primarily individual. You don't have the investment buyers buying multiple units wanting to rent them out. I don't see that so much in the Lower Mainland. It's more just for the owners and the landlords that can afford to put a big chunk of money down on their rentals so they can also afford to run it with a low rent. So I don't really see that too much on the property management side of things or the rental side of things. So it's I don't think it really affects us too much.
Okay. We've got one last call from Jessica in Victoria. I've only got about 30 seconds left for you, Jessica, but what was the point you wanted to make?
Well, the real estate investment trusts are everywhere in Canada, and they have warped the market and driven the prices through the roof. And they are price fixing rentals so that nobody can afford to save a down payment. The real reason the prices are dropping is because in January 2023, the federal government banned residential real estate ownership by foreign owners unless they were in residence. And so we have a glut on the market. And so the builders are pulling back and the prices are dropping, but they will never drop to a price that would be affordable for a normal person because of the real estate investment trust.
Right.
We have to build non-market housing.
Okay, we will have to leave it there, unfortunately, Jessica. And that is it for our segment. Thank you both. Nina Knudsen is a rentals property manager for Royal LePage Sussex Realty, and Randy Ryalls is the managing broker of Royal LePage Sterling in Port Moody. It is nearly 12:28, and this is BC Today. And donations keep coming in for our annual Make the Season Kind Food Bank fundraiser. Another $70,000 was added to the total board yesterday. We are now at, believe it or not, $1,842,200.64. Thank you so much for these contributions. These funds will go to those in need and make use of one of the 111 food banks across our province. CBC's annual fundraiser, of course, started 39 years ago, and to date, it's raised more than $24 million. Last year, the grand total was $2.4 million. I'm pretty sure that we can beat that this year. Well, the giving period is far from over. We are accepting donations online until December 31st. So to make a donation, you can go to cbc.ca/kindbc, click on Donate Now, and then once again, that email is cbc.ca/kindbc. Click on the Donate Now button. You'll receive your tax receipt within hours. You can also donate by text. Text KIND to 20222. Helping our food banks is a cherished cause for us here at CBC. And once again, we're extending our deepest gratitude for anyone who can donate. I'm Amy Bell. Thanks for joining me today on BC Today. And coming up in our second half hour, we're going to look at ways to keep the forestry industry sustainable. That's coming up right after the 12:30 news with Tarnjeet Parmar.
Good afternoon. Environment Canada has issued an orange weather alert for parts of the Fraser Valley. Heavy rain is expected starting this evening through to tomorrow night, with up to 100 millimeters of rain possible. The alert blankets the central Fraser Valley, including Chilliwack, and pushes east to Hope and Manning Park, as well as Highway 3 from Hope to Princeton. Orange alerts mean severe weather is likely to cause damage, disruption, or health impacts. Less severe alerts are in place for parts of Metro Vancouver and parts of Vancouver Island. BC Coastal First Nation leaders are in Ottawa today as MPs vote on a pipeline motion from the Conservative Party. The Tories are calling on the government to support construction of a pipeline and adjust the oil tanker ban off of BC's north coast. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has amended that motion to include a reference to working with Indigenous peoples in British Columbia. And Air Transat is cancelling more flights ahead of tomorrow's strike deadline. The company does that even as it continues talks with the union representing its pilots. They are set to walk off the job at midnight Pacific time if no agreement is reached. The airline says it has tabled improved offers and significant concessions for its pilots in the last few hours. Those are your news headlines from the CBC Vancouver newsroom. For more information, you can go to the website cbc.ca/BC.
And thank you for that, Tarnjeet. And thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on the CBC News app, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. And we continue to follow the news of Hastings Racecourse and Casino in East Vancouver, announcing it's permanently shutting down. Some are looking to the future of what Hastings Park will look like and what it could be used for, including possibly a new stadium for the Vancouver Whitecaps now that the team's lease with BC Place is ending. But others are looking back and reminiscing about the racecourse's 133-year history. Vancouver historian Aaron Chapman not only knows plenty about it as an institution in Vancouver, but his father used to own horses that raced the track. He spoke about it with the Early Edition this morning.
Probably a lot of people like me of a certain age who went out with their parents to the track quite regularly, and we have memories of it that remain.
Well, we've even got a picture of you, in fact, a photo of you at the track that you posted on Facebook.
Yes.
There it is on the monitor behind you. What is happening in the photo? You're standing with a horse.
That's a horse called Kokoda Trail that my dad had named. He'd been a soldier in the Australian Army in the Second World War. And he had fought in New Guinea on the Kokoda Trail. I always thought it was odd that he called the horse Kokoda Trail because there were certain elements that he was sort of haunted, like any veteran would have been. But yeah. I think it maybe helped define him, and that's why he wanted to call the horse that. I wish I could ask him. He passed away almost 20 years ago. So, but that day, June, I think it's 24th, 1992, Kokoda Trail came in first, and you got to go to the winner's circle and stand, and you would get your photo, and there would be a picture, as you see, of the horse running past, and I was fortunate enough to be out there, a few times, and it was always something that I will remember how much he enjoyed it. It was something it was a bond that I had with my father, I suppose.
And BC's forestry industry has taken some serious hits in recent years. Rising U.S. duties on softwood lumber have added financial strain, while long-standing challenges like the beetle infestation and increasingly severe wildfires continue to take a toll. And now the sector is facing fresh setbacks, with the Crofton Pulp Mill in the Cowichan Valley and West Fraser's operation in 100 Mile House both announcing closures. And with pressure coming from so many directions, the discussion is shifting. It's not just about keeping the industry running day to day. It's about transforming it into something more resilient, sustainable, and competitive for the future. So what needs to change for BC's forest industry to thrive in the long run? What new practices should be adopted to ensure sustainability? And on a personal level, have you felt the impact of the sector's instability? Call us now. Just hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also call 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can always email us bctoday@cbc.ca or leave a comment on our TikTok Live. Now, for more, we are joined by Jennifer Houghton with the Boundary Forest Watershed Stewardship Society. Good afternoon, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I quickly highlighted some of the most recent setbacks for the forest industry, but something so dire doesn't occur overnight or from just one incident. Walk us through how you think we've gotten to this place in the sector.
Well, I mean, that is the question. And BC forestry is a complex thing, but the answer to that question is pretty straightforward. BC logged too much, too fast, for too long, and the wood just isn't there anymore, not the profitable wood that mills need to keep functioning. So high grading is what they've been doing for decades, which means they remove the best trees first, and the tree plantations that are there now just can't keep up. And the essence of it is that the land is tired. That's the root cause. The land is telling the truth.
And then how does a grassroots group such as your own, the Boundary Forest Watershed Stewardship Society, how do they then maybe effectively collaborate with provincial industries and agencies to really improve that forest planning and I suppose monitoring going forward?
Well, there are a lot of grassroots groups like ours across BC who've been speaking up about issues in their local areas for a very long time. And that was we saw what was going on, and we saw that with all of us sort of speaking in our silos and just talking about local issues, that we were limited. We wanted to see changes in our local forest management and forest practices, but the laws and the system prop up those practices. And so what we did was we decided to come up with a blueprint, a framework for legislation. We're calling it the New Forest Act. And what it does, and this is the only concrete solution really that's this sort of comprehensive that anyone has created for BC. People have recommended tweaking the system, minor changes to some pieces of the legislation, but this is a structural problem. It's a systematic problem. It's a system problem. And so we have to address it at a system level. And so the New Forest Act framework that we've come up with, it puts into law that what's left needs to be protected. So that would be the primary forest, what's still intact. The degraded areas need to be restored using scientifically validated restoration methods. And then logging can continue. We are absolutely supportive of logging, but it has to continue in a way that's careful, that's selective, and can be done in ways that the land will support and also supports value-added industry in a big way.
And what sort of value-added industry are you referring to?
Well, BC is behind investing in value-added. There's only a very small percentage of the BC budget that currently gets invested in value added. So we're talking about local businesses, local manufacturing, local mills doing things like laminated products, doing paneling, flooring. There could also be furniture, interior products as well, acoustic paneling, those sorts of things. BC is way behind on value added, and the potential for that is huge, even on the second growth forests.
I do have a call that's come in that I want to get to. This one from Laura in Port Alberni. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
Hi, and I understand your family's been greatly impacted by what's happening in the industry.
Well, we raised 4 boys. My husband retired after 30 years of working, and it's all about shipping the logs. I'm listening to your program. She's absolutely right. We have to, like Carney, if we believe this mantra, we have to invest in Canada, and that means no more log exports. So we're shipping a finished product. We're not shipping logs. Like we're closing mills as we're having this conversation that we're not. That call will be recorded, and the mills are being closed because we don't have the fiber supply, and we can't get the fiber supply when we're shipping it faster than we're not processing it. And this has been going on. We were marching for this 20 years ago. We were doing log export rallies. And, governments have been elected and come and gone on the promise of sustainability for the forestry sector, and we're not seeing it. Do we just have to start guerrilla warfaring logs with trucks with logs to get a point across? because it only takes 3.5% of a population to change any given mandate. And it's crazy. Politicians either really listen to their constituents, and, I'm a glorified housewife, and I know this, and they have, these experts that can't figure this out. If we're going to keep this industry, we have to invest in it.
All right. Thank you very much for all of those strong points, Laura and Jennifer. I see you were nodding along, strongly to her points. And this is somebody who's had a long history with the forestry industry, pointing out that these issues today are the same ones that they were bringing up decades ago. Why are we still at this point? Why have we not seen that systematic change coming in earlier?
Well, the system has built up around this over decades. And even when new laws were established back in 2003 around forestry, they were laws that support industry. The system and the laws they protect corporate licenses, not communities. And so the companies are incentivized to continue to do this volume-based system. The companies export the logs, like she said, and now they're selling their licenses, they're closing mills, and they're moving investments down south. The system incentivizes companies to behave this way. And I don't know why the government isn't realizing, maybe it could be pressure from lobbying. It could be the industry, the big corporations have a lot of lobbying power. And so they're asking for this system to continue until they've logged as much profitable wood as they can. And, this lady's talking about the future. Well, the future is stewardship. We need to protect what's left, restore what's degraded, and do careful logging so that we're basing logging and the system now on creating more jobs per log and not exporting huge volumes.
Okay. Another call coming in from Sam in Vancouver. Hi, Sam. What are your thoughts on the forestry industry?
Hi. I have a few thoughts.
Okay.
But, I'm a horticulturist, and I studied plant production and the environment. And while I was a student, I did some tree planting for a little bit. And I was pretty horrified at what I saw. It made me realize how the forestry sector is in a way far worse than I could have imagined. So,
and what did you find so horrifying? I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of, if I may, explain a concept of one of the things that's happening in forestry. So in BC, when a logging company goes through and does a big wide cut of an area, obviously they remove all of the trees, they remove all of the underbrush, they remove all the stumps of the trees even, and what they will do is they will till the land into these big rows, so like big hillocks that are like 1.5 meters wide.
Okay.
And so they are, in effect, destroying the other plant species that are in the forest. Any kind of native habitat for any other species is destroyed. So they're not just going in, getting the wood, replanting trees, and the forest grows back happy. They are going in and clearing all the weeds, and they're tilling the soil, which also disrupts the microbial communities in the soil. So the forest will never be as it was again.
Okay.
And I think that there should be some significant changes to how those practices are done so that they can come and clear the wood, but leave some of the habitat intact. And ensure that there are still some plants remaining so that they can reseed the areas that have been significantly degraded by logging.
All right, Sam.
Near the blocks, I'll finish quickly. Near the blocks, I did find native orchids and rare plants that are endangered, but the way they're doing it, like we're making everything go extinct. And
okay. Sam, we do want to move on to some more callers, but you made some excellent points there. I'll get another call in now from Douglas in Dragon Lake. Hi, Douglas.
Hi there. I'm so happy that finally you're having a woman like Jennifer Houghton on, who, with a whole huge network of people throughout BC, have been pushing for alternatives for so long. I just wanted to mention that I was part of a model up here in the Caribou that dates right from the early 80s right through to the late 90s, called the Caribou Horse Loggers Association. And we, along with many other woodlot owners and different small loggers throughout BC, were showing the alternative through what we called natural selection forestry, where we were low grading, taking the trees that the forest was sort of pushing out of the system and leaving the best, letting those trees become very high value so that we could have a value-added manufacturing industry. The only way we're going to be able to supply the kind of quality timber that fuels a value-added wood manufacturing industry is by having a value-added silvicultural system. And that's the kind of thing that Jennifer's talking about here. We're talking about letting forests go through all the different natural cycles that they normally have. Right now, I just want to say, Ravi Parmar, the forest minister, and this government is talking about moving into our parks. Now, our parks and conservation areas and ecological reserves, these are so important because we've devastated so much of our forests throughout the province that we really need to have these models of wild primary forests so that we can learn from them. To think that we know everything, that we can get rid of all the natural models for how forests work is absolutely human supremacy of the worst kind. So I just really hope we get on with it in BC, and this government is certainly going in the absolute opposite direction of sustainability.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Douglas. And, you know, we sort of heard from those two callers, Jennifer, both sort of speaking to how we have not looked at the forest in a holistic sense. We're just going in, tearing out the trees without thought to how it's affecting the greater environments. Where do we drastically need to see that shift, and how quickly could we begin to see that?
Well, again, the future of forest management is stewardship. It's not extraction anymore. And the shift, you know, these are both people who worked in the forest industry. And it seems like the people who work in the industry are the ones who really know what's going on. And the shift would be that the government starts listening to people who've been on the land for so long, and they see what's happening. They see how forests function. We need to maintain functioning ecosystems, forests that manage our water forests, forests that keep the slopes stable, they moderate heat, they grow back in their own durations. And the way that shifts is more people need to understand it, more people need to be going to their representatives of government and speaking about it and supporting this concrete solution. One of the things that's been happening is people have been, first of all, talking in their own local areas and addressing just their local issues, which is very important, but they also need to talk about system changes. And that's what we're doing with the new Forest Act. It's a whole system concrete solution. And those are the sorts of things that people need to start supporting, is talking about changing the legislation that supports this system.
And we do have to acknowledge, of course, the financial and economic pressure that the industry is under, that the whole country is under over the last several years. We know the Forestry Minister, Ravi Parmar, was recently on a trade mission to South Korea and Japan looking for new buyers for BC forestry products. We know that raw log export is a big driver of money. So how do we balance taking care of our environment and being sustainable while also recognizing the need to generate this revenue?
The reason that I shook my head is because it's a very common misconception that the forest industry is a big driver of the BC economy. It used to be, but it no longer is. In BC, the forest industry only contributes 2% to the provincial GDP. It's now only contributing 2% of the jobs in BC. And the reason for that is because of this system. The system has mechanized itself out of jobs. And the raw log exports are bringing in very little money. And what we need to do is we need to shift to a system to support the economy of BC, to support local businesses, to support local economies. We need to shift to a system that gets more value out of each log instead of shipping out cheap raw logs and cheap dimension lumber. So that's 2x4s and other dimension lumber. We need to shift to value added. That is what needs to be happening. So for the forest minister or anybody else in government to be going abroad to open up new marketing offices, that's not the answer, because you can't export what you don't have. The land is telling us that it's run out. The land, Premier Eby said it himself. He said BC's forests are exhausted. You cannot, no amount of marketing is going to change the fact that the reason mills are closing is because the wood just isn't there anymore. If it was, these big companies would stay. They wouldn't be closing their mills. The profitable wood just isn't there. It's too far away. It's too small. It's too young. It's not accessible. It's too costly to haul it to the mills. It's just not there. So there's no point in opening up more offices for something that isn't there.
All right. We've got a few more calls that have come in, Jennifer. This one from Michelle in Prince George. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for joining the show.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. So what are your thoughts on today's discussion about the forestry industry?
I wanted to really back up everything that Jennifer Houghton is saying about grassroots support in interior BC for a system where we zone out forestry out of natural forests, commit parts of the degraded landscape to restoration, and basically do responsible logging on the rest. This system, I'm in Prince George. I run a grassroots group. This system that's being pitched by Jen and others helps us deal with biodiversity loss, climate change, disturbances like fire, and issues like flooding. A couple of the callers have suggested a system where we just do better logging in natural forests, but we think it's way too late for that. If we had started that kind of system back in 1980 or 1990, we would have a lot more options in terms of climate resilience and biodiversity, but that time is gone. And so much of BC's landscape has already been converted away from natural forests like old growth. And we think it's time to now just step back from those places and focus management in parts of the landscape where we can actually do things better, which is the already degraded parts.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much for that. Call now from Stephen in Vancouver. Hi, Stephen.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Of course. So what are your thoughts on today's topic?
Well, I want to kind of amplify, among other things, what Douglas was saying. Back in the early 90s when we had the Clackwood Sound protests, I managed to interview Merv Wilkinson, who was back then an old-time horse logger. He claimed that he started with 1 million board feet of lumber. He'd logged over 1 million. He logged about 1.5 million board feet, and he had 1.2 million board feet left.
Okay.
And that's what you can get if you do proper selective logging. And around the same time, I actually got an email from a guy in California, and back then, the logging companies were, blaming the environmentalists for putting all of the forest into parks. And he did some calculations. He figured if you took every acre of parkland, opened it up to logging, and logged it at the rate they were doing at the height of the California logging, it would last about 6 months.
Wow.
And the last one was I got into an argument with a BC forester. We were in front of a couple of young forestry students, and one of the things I said was that if the environmentalists didn't win the fight, that those students wouldn't have a forest to retire from managing. And I think we're getting about there now.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Stephen. And Jennifer, obviously the environment and the impacts of climate change being felt in all industries, but especially dire, it seems, in the forest. How do we address where we are today from an environmental standpoint?
Well, the caller, Michelle, she was exactly right. We do need to protect what's left. So the primary forests are forests that have never been subject to industrial extractive activity. It's those kinds of forests that manage our water forests. So that means they help to stabilize the climate. They manage floods, they manage fires, and they manage drought too. So we need to protect what's left, absolutely. And we need to spend a lot of time and we can invest a lot of jobs restoring the degraded lands. It's going to take generations for us to restore the areas that have been clear cut in BC. So in some areas, there will be some activity that needs to occur in terms of restoration, doing the scientifically validated restoration activities, which will create jobs. And in some areas, it means just leaving nature alone and letting her recover so that she can get back to doing what she does for us. The forests are essential for our communities and for our economy, and they need to be supported. Stewardship is the future. The future isn't volume, the future is stewardship.
All right. Time for another call from Lee in Blue River. Hi, Lee.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Oh, great. Thank you. My question is to Jennifer, and I am an elected official with the Thompson-Nicola Regional District.
Okay.
And Jennifer and I have actually had a conversation in the past, but I want to know, what is the group's main challenge in getting the message to the Ministry of Forests, to the Premier, and what can citizens do to help?
All right. Great questions, Leah. I'll leave that one for you, Jennifer.
Well, a few months ago, somebody told me that they were in a direct conversation with Premier Eby, and he said that not enough people are speaking up about forests, which I know is not true, because I've been in this for 7 years, and people all over the province have been emailing, calling for meetings, meeting with the Ministry of Forests. And so we need to keep doing that. And the most important thing that people need to do is support a concrete solution, because it's really easy for the government. If you go to the government and you say things like save old growth or do better forest management, then it's easy for them to put in a feel-good program that doesn't really do anything on the land. So concrete solutions, and again, I'm gonna tout the new Forest Act proposal because it is complete. It asks for specifics. And that's what people need to do, is get behind this kind of a solution. Start with your local councils. You can go to people like Lee who are supportive of this. You can get them to push the provincial government. We're talking about provincial legislation. That is what dominates in the province. And so start talking to people, your elected officials, about the legislation. We need to crack that open.
All right, Jennifer, we are right out of time, but wonderful to speak with you today.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer Houghton with Boundary Forest Watershed Stewardship Society. And that is it for our show today. Thanks for calling in and joining the discussion. You can also email us, bctoday@cbc.ca.